Imagine this, my wedding day, a dream, right? But then, nobody showed. Not a single relative from my family came to my wedding, not even my parents or my 27-year-old best friend. Weeks later they texted, "We hope you're okay," alone, thinking it would sting. I just smiled. Then when I opened the door for them last week, they froze seeing me standing with the $50,000 gift bags. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. My name is Alara, and my life, well, it used to be just normal. You know, a bit messy, a bit wonderful, like everyone else's. I always pictured my wedding day clear as glass, a big hall, lots of laughter, my mom Martha crying happy tears in the front row, my dad Robert probably grumbling about the cost but secretly beaming. And Chloe, my best friend since we were 7, always by my side, teasing me about getting cold feet. That was my dream, my expectation, stitched into the fabric of my future. I was 27, just like Chloe, and I'd met Ben 2 years prior. He was everything I hadn't even known I needed, kind, steady, with a laugh that made my chest feel warm. He wasn't rich, didn't have a fancy job, but he loved me fiercely, for exactly who I was. My family, though? They weren't exactly thrilled. "He's nice," Alara, Mom would say, her voice trailing off, as if nice was the worst thing a person could be. Dad Robert would just grunt. Aunt Carol and Uncle Rick, they'd chime in with their usual commentary, "He doesn't have much ambition, does he, dear?" It felt like they were always waiting for me to aim higher, to find someone who would, in their words, elevate the family. Ben was a teacher, for goodness sake. A wonderful, dedicated teacher. But in their eyes, that wasn't enough. Still, I pushed through their subtle disapproval. Love felt too important to let their opinions cloud it. We planned a simple wedding, nothing too flashy, but elegant, personal. I sent out invitations months in advance, made sure to call everyone personally. "Oh, Alara, of course, darling." Aunt Carol had chirped. Mom Martha promised to help me pick out the flowers, something we'd always talked about. Chloe even offered to plan my bachelorette party. I felt a flutter of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they would see Ben for the amazing man he was that day. Maybe they'd finally accept him into our family, into my life. I really wanted them there. I truly did. The week before the wedding, things started to get weird. Mom Martha kept postponing our flower meeting. "Oh, sweetie, my back is acting up again," she'd sigh. Dad Robert became impossible to reach, his calls going straight to voicemail. Chloe, my rock, usually so quick to text back, started taking hours. "Just super busy with work, you know," she'd type, followed by a smiley face that didn't quite feel right. My heart started to feel a tiny prick of unease. I tried to shake it off. Wedding jitters, that's all, right? Everyone gets them. Ben was so excited, so supportive. He'd catch me fretting over little things and pull me into a hug. "It's our day, love," he'd whisper, "that's all that matters." His words were a balm, but the tiny prick of worry still lingered, a stubborn mosquito bite. Then came the morning of June 14th, a perfect blue sky day. The sun streamed into the bridal suite, making the white dress sparkle. My hair was done, my makeup flawless. My maid of honor, Maya, a friend from college, not related to my family, was bustling around, helping me with my shoes. "You look absolutely stunning, Alara," she gushed. I smiled, a bit tremulously. My phone was eerily quiet. No good luck texts from Mom or Dad, nothing from Chloe. I called Mom. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I called Chloe. Same thing. A knot tightened in my stomach. They're probably just on their way, busy, I told myself, trying to sound convincing, even to myself. The ceremony was set for 2 p.m. Ben was waiting, handsome in his suit. The photographer was ready, the music playing softly. Guests started to arrive, Ben's small family, our close friends, some colleagues. But as the clock ticked past 2, then 2:15, then 2:30, the front rows remained empty. The chairs I had specially reserved for my parents, for Aunt Carol and Uncle Rick, for Chloe. They sat starkly, unforgivingly empty. No one. Not a single text, not a call, not an explanation. Just silence. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out all the air. Maya squeezed my hand, her eyes full of sympathy. Ben, from the altar, caught my gaze. His smile was soft, understanding, but his eyes held a flicker of pain for me. The humiliation was a cold wave washing over me, chilling me to the bone. It wasn't just disappointment, it was a profound, aching betrayal. My family, my best friend, they hadn't just missed my wedding, they had completely abandoned me on the most important day of my life. It felt like a punch to the gut, a deep, burning shame that settled in my heart. The wedding day itself, despite the gaping hole where my family should have been, was beautiful in its own way. Ben, bless his heart, stepped forward, his voice a steady anchor. "Ilara," he said, taking my hand, "they might not be here, but we are. And that's all that matters, right?" He smiled, a genuine, loving smile, and in that moment, the world didn't feel quite so broken. We got married, just as planned, surrounded by the people who did show up, people who loved and supported us without judgment. It was smaller, quieter than I'd imagined, but the love was real. After the vows, after the quiet reception, I broke down, sobbing into Ben's shoulder. The tears weren't just for the day, but for years of unspoken disappointment, for a family that always seemed to value appearances over genuine connection. "Why, Ben? Why would they do this?" I choked out, my voice raw with hurt. He just held me tight. "I don't know, Ilara," he whispered, "but it's their loss, not ours. You deserve better." His words were a comfort, but the sting, the deep, emotional bruise, stayed. In the weeks and months that followed, I tried to reach out. Repeated calls, countless texts. My mom, Martha, eventually picked up, her voice sounding distant. "Ilara, sweetie, we thought you knew." Knew what? Knew they weren't coming? Knew they were going to pretend I didn't exist? She rambled about unforeseen circumstances, last-minute issues, and not wanting to make a fuss. It was all vague, hollow, and absolutely no apology. My dad, Robert, sent one short text, "Family business. Can't discuss." Chloe, my supposed best friend, was the worst. She never directly answered my calls. Instead, she'd send these bubbly, superficial messages, "So sorry, girl. Wild week. Hope everything went great with Ben." Great? Seriously? It felt like a slap in the face. She wouldn't acknowledge the gaping wound she'd inflicted. It was like they collectively decided to erase my wedding day, and by extension me. Ben and I, we just focused on us. We lived in a small rented apartment, both working hard. He loved teaching, and I was in marketing, just starting out at a new company. Money was tight sometimes, really tight. We'd have ramen for dinner more often than not, but we laughed. We built IKEA furniture together, painted our tiny living room a cheerful yellow, and made promises to each other under the stars on our fire escape. We were a team, a unit. He became my only family. And honestly, it was freeing in a way. Without the constant pressure, the subtle critiques, the unspoken expectations of my birth family, I started to breathe easier. I realized how much energy I had spent trying to please them, trying to earn their approval, trying to make them see Ben through my eyes. Without that burden, I could just be Ilara, Ben's wife, a woman building her own life. Then, about 3 years into our marriage, something shifted. My marketing job started to take off. I'd been pouring my heart and soul into a new project, a digital campaign for a niche tech startup. It was a risky move, demanding late nights and all my creativity. The project, against all odds, became a massive success. The startup got acquired, and because of my pivotal role, I received a significant bonus and a promotion to a senior management position. It wasn't overnight wealth, not exactly, but it was a huge step up. Ben was so proud, beaming brighter than I'd ever seen him. "You did it, Ilara. I always knew you had this in you," he cheered, spinning me around our small living room. That bonus, it was enough for a down payment on a little house. Not a mansion, just a cozy home with a small garden, but it felt like a palace to us. We worked on it together, painting walls, fixing leaky faucets. Every nail we hammered, every plant we put in the ground, felt like building a future we truly owned. Our own future. Word started to spread, as it always does in small towns, or through the invisible grapevine of family connections. My mom, Martha, suddenly started texting again. Not apologies, oh no. Just casual messages. "How are you, sweetie? Haven't heard from you in a while." Then, a few weeks later, a text from Chloe. "Hey stranger. Been meaning to catch up. Long time no see, right? Drinks soon." I ignored most of them. The hurt was still there, a dull ache that flared up when their names appeared on my screen. I was thriving, truly happy, and they had absolutely nothing to do with it. My success felt like my own personal victory, earned through hard work and Ben's unwavering support, in spite of their judgment and abandonment. It was a silent triumph. Then last week, right after Ben and I celebrated paying off another chunk of our mortgage, I got that text. From Mom. "We hope you're okay alone, Ilara." Just that. Not a question, but a statement, laced with a familiar condescension. A jab, a reminder of the past, implying I was still somehow lacking, still isolated. And you know what? I just smiled. A slow, genuine smile. Because I wasn't alone. I hadn't been alone for years. That text from my mom, "We hope you're okay alone," it didn't sting like it would have before. It just landed flat. Ben was sitting beside me on the couch, watching a silly movie. He glanced at my phone. "Everything all right, love?" he asked, sensing my pause. I just shook my head, a small knowing smile on my face. "Everything is perfect, Ben," I replied, leaning into him. "More than perfect." His arm went around me, and in that simple gesture, I felt a warmth, a completeness that my birth family had never provided. That text for them was supposed to be a subtle reminder of my supposed solitude, their way of saying, "See? You were nothing without us." But for me, it was a moment of clarity. It crystallized everything. My wedding day had been the ultimate humiliation, but it had forced me to build my own foundation, brick by brick, with Ben. And now, I was far from alone. I was surrounded by genuine love, stability, and a quiet, hard-earned success. A few days later, my mom Martha called. Her voice, usually so clipped and judgmental, had a new, slightly softer edge. "Ilara, darling? It's been too long. Your father Robert and I, and Aunt Carol and Uncle Rick, we were thinking of having a family get-together. A small dinner, just to reconnect. Catch up. You know, old times." It wasn't an apology. Not even close. It was an invitation, almost an expectation, that I would fall back into line, eager for their attention. I paused. Ben, who had heard the phone conversation, gave me a questioning look. I took a deep breath. "Okay, Mom," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the emotion swirling inside me. "Let me check with Ben. I'll get back to you with a date." It was time. Not for revenge, not for bitterness, but for closure. It was time for them to see the life they had dismissed, the woman they had abandoned. The dinner was set for Saturday evening, at their house. I chose a simple, elegant dress. Ben, knowing what this meant to me, just squeezed my hand before we left. "You've got this, Ilara," he said, his eyes full of pride. We arrived, pulling into their familiar driveway. My heart gave a little thump, a mix of old nerves and new confidence. As we walked up to the door, I carried two rather large designer gift bags. They weren't for them, not really. They were a prop, a symbol. Inside were expensive, luxury items, not for them, but for a charity auction I was organizing through my company next month, gifts from a client. But they didn't need to know that. They just needed to see the bags. I knocked. The door opened, revealing my mom Martha. Her smile faltered, her eyes widening slightly as she took in Ben, then me, and then the bags in my hands. Behind her, Dad Robert peered over her shoulder, his jaw going slack. Aunt Carol and Uncle Rick, seated in the living room, also froze. "Ilara." Mom stammered, her voice a whisper. They hadn't expected this. They had expected the old Ilara, perhaps a little downtrodden, certainly not holding evidence of a flourishing life. Their faces, usually so composed, crumpled into expressions of genuine shock, a mixture of surprise and something else, something like dawning regret. "Hi, Mom," I said, my voice calm, almost serene. I stepped inside, Ben following, his presence a quiet strength beside me. "Sorry if we're late. Just came from a meeting." I held up the bags slightly, giving them a casual glance. "These are from a client. Had to pick them up before dinner. Busy week, you know." It was a deliberate, understated flex. A hint of the world I now inhabited, a world they had scorned. Mom Martha looked at the bags, then at my dress, then back at my face, searching. "Meeting? For what?" she asked, her voice tight. Oh, just some final touches for the company's charity gala next month, I explained, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. We're aiming to raise over $1 million this year. It's a huge undertaking, but exciting. Dad Robert cleared his throat, finally finding his voice. A charity gala? Ilara, what are you talking about? His eyes darted to Ben, as if searching for an explanation. I smiled, a genuine warm smile, devoid of any malice, but brimming with self-assurance. Ben and we've been doing really well, Dad. My career at Ascent Marketing has taken off. We bought a house, and things are just good. Really good. I looked directly at each of them, my gaze steady. It's funny, isn't it? I continued, my voice gentle, almost contemplative. After the wedding, after no one showed up, Ben and we had to build our own path. We learned to rely on each other, to trust in ourselves. And it turns out, that was the best thing that ever happened to us. Chloe, my 27-year-old best friend, was also there, shrinking into the corner, avoiding my gaze completely. Her silence, her shame, spoke volumes. Your absence, I said, my voice still soft, it was incredibly painful. But it taught us resilience. It taught us what true family looks like. And for that, I guess, thank you. The room was silent, heavy with unspoken words. Their faces were a canvas of disbelief, regret, and a dawning understanding of exactly what they had forfeited. The gifts, the success, the confidence, it wasn't about rubbing it in. It was about standing there, whole and happy, showing them that I was okay. More than okay. I was thriving, not alone, but with the man who had always been by my side. And I didn't need their approval anymore. My arc was closed. All questions answered. I was free. Before you go, if you've ever found strength after being let down, tell me your story in the comments.